All right, welcome back everyone to another Welcome to the J episode. I am your host, Jahenns Manigat, aka 12, aka Canadian Red Bull. It's that time of year. Biggies tournament is right around the corner. I got two very special guests with me today. Before we get into it though, I make sure that you like and subscribe to Field of 68 Media Network to get content such as this. Make sure to like that, subscribe that, share that with all your friends and family to listen to some more J's content from me, Jahenns Manigat. All right, guys, this is our guest number 19 and 20. First time in a Welcome to the J episode that we have two former alumni, or not former alumni, two alums, former players in the J with me. They're both Creightonians. They're both homegrown in Omaha. One was a West Side Warrior. The other one's been a junior J, but they're both Blue Jays at heart forever and always. I got my man Ross Ferrarini back and Taylor Stormberg back into the J with me. What up, boys? How you guys doing?
What's up, Big J?
Oh, what
I'm
up,
good.
12?
Taylor, what's good with you, bro? Taylor, new father. How's life going for you, bro? You
Oh
sleeping yet,
man.
or you got a good sleep cycle going?
Yeah, it's good, man. No, it's going really well. She just turned 5 months old, man, on
Ooh.
yesterday, which is crazy. So getting the sleeping thing down and starting the whole food process, but she's amazing. So I appreciate you asking.
That's awesome. That's great to hear.
I need to come meet Taylor's little girl.
Yeah. Ross, you better bring some gifts, man. You better
I know
bring
I
some
need to come
Jays
meet I
gear.
need to come meet your little girl because I just met Dorwart's little guy on
Oh,
Sunday.
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta do the rounds, Roscoe. You're
I
in
know I
town. You
gotta
might as well do it.
I know I gotta do the rounds. I've been meaning to I've talked to Taylor about it a few times. And I just that we just need to nail down a time when the baby isn't napping or needs to be fed is and is
So
is ready to see visitors.
a finite amount of time. There's
Okay.
like this much time in the day,
I
Ross.
know.
Yeah, you're not giving yourself much leeway there, Ross. Like if that's what the criteria is gonna be, not napping, not sleeping.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, come
I
on.
went. I was at Dorwich for literally like 10 minutes. The baby just his little guy Jude just looked at me and just started like crying. So I was like, all right, man, I'll cut your guys' hair.
That's awesome. Oh, that's great.
I love it. Let's get into it, boys, because obviously we have a big week coming up. The Jays finished their Biggies regular season game or on Saturday, I should say, against DePaul, beating them 84-70. That allows them to be the third seed in this upcoming Big East tournament championship. Big game from Trey Alexander, 21.6 rebounds. He's been playing at a really, really high level these past couple of games. So has Ryan Nemhard, who joined him with 20 points and 11 rebounds for R2. A little bit of foul trouble there for Kalkbrenner on Saturday, but he finishes up with 20 and 4. Those were your three real standout Blue Jays for the year. Now they'll face the winner of either Georgetown or Villanova. How do we feel about the way that the Jays ended the season? You know, that they had a chance there to get back into the race to be at the top of the Big East standings. But they finished strong, beating Georgetown and DePaul, although both those teams aren't, respectfully the best talent that the Big East has this year. But they're still able to come out with two convincing wins to end the regular season to head into Big East play. Taylor, I'll have you answer first. How do we feel about how the Jays ended their season?
Yeah, I think, I mean, in all reality, they're two great get right games, right? We saw offensively what Creighton is capable of doing against Georgetown, with with all the threes that were raining in the first half specifically, and then to go on the road and play at DePaul, while it's not the most boisterous crowd, is always difficult to go on the road anytime. And it was just great to see them get continuity back. As you mentioned, Jay, in that last game against DePaul, right? You had three starters that all scored 20 plus points. Like, at, you can't really ask for much more offensively. They held DePaul to 29 points in the first half, which is great on the defensive side. And now they're looking forward to what's probably going to be an extremely tough matchup on Thursday night against Villanova. Assuming that Villanova beats Georgetown tomorrow.
Don't count those Georgetown Hoyas out in the Big East
I
tournament.
know, I
A couple of years
know.
ago, Creighton did that and got
Oh,
absolutely drummed in that Big East tournament finals. Ross, same question to you. How do you feel about the last two games for the Jays?
Yeah, I sort of on the same page as Taylor. It's nice to get kind of two get right games to end the year. And, obviously they jumped on Georgetown early. And so, we really haven't seen a ton of games this year where all 5 starters have played really well in the same game. It seems like it's, 3 of them or 2 of them or 4 of them, play really well. And maybe 1 or 2 guys really kind of miss the mark. And so I think that, that gives me a level of bullishness going into the postseason, especially as I look around the landscape of college basketball. And I say, there's not really any dominant teams here. This is about as wide open as it's been for any seed 1 through 6, 7, 8 to make a deep run as it's been in a long time. So I look at some of these top seeds, and none of them really scare me. If you're a Creighton fan, quite frankly, UCLA is probably the best team I've watched. Houston obviously does some very, very good things. But some of those other teams on those top seed lines, have struggled. Have had their struggles as well. So I think if we can really, fall into a nice groove here, and obviously, in the tournament, it kind of just depends on, your seeding and your draw and how that all plays out. But gotta show well in New York first. I would assume that we're playing Villanova, but it's a weird thing. Like, Georgetown is an extremely talented club. They've got some guys that can really go. They're just, at this point, is Georgetown completely checked out? I can't imagine that they'll beat Villanova, but who knows? Maybe they'll surprise us. So if it is in fact Villanova, that they've been a tough matchup for us this year, and they're a little bit of a different team with the healthy Justin Moore. So we'll see what happens on Thursday and kind of just go from there.
I definitely also think that Villanova will end up being our opponent for Thursday's game for sure. But it's just, again, like in those tournament type settings, you just never know. It's one and done. What if it's Nova's worst day of the year and then Georgetown just somehow picks up some steam there? So you just kind of never know. Ross, you did say something there though that I kind of want to pick your brain about just a little bit more about the landscape of college basketball as a whole and how open it is. Like, we've never seen such parity in the top 25 AP poll from week in to week out. Like, top seeds were going down left, right, and center. Blue bloods were in and out as much as any other team in the nation. So what do you think like that stems from, that's created such parity for this particular year? And I feel like really since going back to when Baylor won it all a couple of years back, like that's kind of been like how college basketball has been looking, where you never really have like those 4, 5, 6 teams that we were really high on that were like, okay, these are national championship caliber teams. Now it's a lot more open to like almost like 20 some teams have the rights to say, hey, if we have a good 3 weeks, like we could be as good as anybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think the simple answer is the transfer portal. And you look at it, I mean, just as an example, you look at a team like Providence, they've done a really good job in the transfer portal, and they've been able to bring guys in that make immediate impacts. And so, you can get a kid from, a former 5-star recruit that plays at a place like Kentucky, like a Bryce Hopkins for Providence. And, he was a bench guy at Kentucky. He got some minutes. He did some okay things, but, he comes into Providence is a star right away. So I think a lot of those moving pieces and kind of the quote unquote free agency of college basketball that's happened has created a lot more parity. And it's just, it's an interesting year. It's just, sometimes it's not always going to be, if you look throughout history, it's not always going to be just the top 4 or 5 teams that are head and shoulders above everybody else. A lot of years it is like that, but there are some years that do kind of look like this year. And, it's crazy. I mean, I'm looking at KenPom's rankings right now. UConn is 4th in KenPom right now. They're the fifth seed in the Biggies tournament.
Right.
I mean, what a weird deal that is. And, Marquette, who's had just a banner year, they're 13th in KenPom. They're behind us and UConn, and they're the 1 seed in the tournament. So it's just, anything could happen here, kind of coming down the stretch. I think a lot of it is shooting variance. Jay, you and I talked about that on the first pod, and especially, and you just mentioned it too, especially when you get into one and done, conference tournament, NCAA tournament territory. I mean, teams start to really clam up a little bit, and it's, if you catch a team on a hot night, even if you're a much better team, you better have some weapons to combat that, because it can get real interesting with upsets in a hurry.
And Taylor, I'll have you weigh in on like the transfers and how that's affecting the landscape of college basketball.
Yeah, the transfer portal has just completely changed how quickly teams can rebuild. I mean, Ross hit it perfectly. I think Bryce Hopkins is the perfect example of that. I mean, you take a team in Providence that probably was underwhelming at the beginning of the season, right? On paper, you're like, oh, I mean, they're not that good, right? And then you get to see Bryce Hopkins play, and no one can guard him, right? And it's just like that changes the game, and now frees up all the other guys on their team to just knock down open shots and play defense. And so, I mean, Ross spoke to it perfectly. It's so fun, and it kind of all kicks off really today, right? I mean, even last week, I guess, in conference tournament play. I'm not going to say that this week is better than the first couple rounds of the NCAA tournament, but you've got nonstop action from 10 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night every single day this week and weekend. And like it's so fun. And now you get to see who's going to rise to the top.
I was locked in this morning on UMass.
Oh, UMass Richmond.
UMass got smoked by Richmond this morning, and then we went into Loyola St. Joe's, and we've got a little bit of Louisville Boston College right now. No, you're right. I've been watching a ton of these low major and mid major tournaments. Which, by the way, shout out to our former assistant D-Rock and his son Tucker.
I was waiting for a good time to plug it in, man. D-Rock and Tucker did the damn thing. And Ross, that kind of goes to what you were saying, like Bradley, #1 in the Valley all year long, right? And then Drake, who's #2, not really like that much lower of a level than Bradley, obviously. Like they're right there neck and neck with each other. But Drake was hot that day. Bradley couldn't throw a break in the ocean. And before you know it, it's a 30-point game. And you're like, this is a championship, like this is a tournament championship game. You know what I mean? So I'm right there with you on that.
And we've seen a lot of especially in these smaller tournaments, there's been a lot of 1 and 2 seeds that have gone down early. I mean, there was a game I was watching the other night. Eastern Washington started Big Sky play, I think 16-0. They ended up losing a couple of games there down the stretch, but they were far and away the 1 seed in that conference, and they lose on the very first night to Northern Arizona on a buzzer beater. There's been a bunch of different examples of that. UNC Asheville barely escapes. They had to come back down from 14 to like a 9 seed Campbell. I mean, there's just the shooting variance makes college basketball really, really difficult. And so, it's going to be fun, man. I'm pumped for the next few weeks.
The Camels. I remember having to play them in Omaha, and they had that one super freaky athletic dude. I don't know if you guys remember his name, but God, man.
One of their best players this year is a Central grad, Omaha Central kid.
Oh, Omaha's everywhere. I'm telling you, man. Y'all sleep on Nebraska prep. Yo, I'm telling you. High school is on the rise in Nebraska like no other. Let's get back into some Biggies talk for sure. Congratulations to the following guys. On the Blue Jays, who got some honors this week, Ryan Kalkbrenner, who's the back-to-back Biggie's Defensive Player of the Year. He actually also won the Philly 68 National Defensive Player of the Year for our network. So congratulations to Kalki. Honorable mentions in the Biggies go to Baylor Sharman and Trey Alexander. I know Ryan Nemhard is looking at that and he's like, y'all snubbed me out somewhere. Like I should have been something. So obviously we're a very biased podcast here at the Welcome to the J podcast. So I'm going to say that, everybody in the starting five at least deserves some sort of consideration for honorable mention, second team, first team. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention Ryan Kalkbrenner also got first team, all Big East too. So Taylor, I'll start with you on this question. Who has been like the Blue Jay that has really impressed you throughout this season with all the ups and downs that the team has had to go through?
Yeah, I think right now it's got to be Trey. I mean, he's just taken his game to the next level. I mean, we've heard this our entire basketball careers, just growing up playing hoops. Is like, okay, you've got a great freshman year, and what comes next is that sophomore slump, right? And you've got Nemhard and that could have fallen in that situation. You've got a guy like Arthur Kaluma in his second year who's kind of struggled. He's been hit or miss, really inconsistent. But I think you've seen Trey really start to rise above and beyond what the expectations were, or at least meet the expectations that we all had for him before the season started. And, when Creighton plays well, it's because Trey Alexander plays well. And it's not necessarily him going out and scoring 25 a night, but it's his defense on the opposing team's best player. It's him rebounding. It's his ability to facilitate the offense without turning the rock over. And so when he has a good game, Creighton plays well, and he's going to have to be huge over the next couple of days in New York City.
We saw how good he was down the stretch last year, especially in the Big East tournament. You had R2 go down in that St. John's game with that broken wrist. Trey gets in as the lead guard. The rest is kind of history as far as what he did, how well he played down the stretch, had a killer NCAA tournament as well. So we all know kind of what he likes to do when the lights are bright and the spotlight is on. So I'm with you there. The Jays, like when Trey is playing really well, the Jays become a team that nobody in the nation wants to see for sure. Ross, same question. Who's a Blue Jay that has really impressed you throughout this year, despite all the ups and downs that as a team we've had to endure?
No, I mean, I've got the same answer. It's Trey. Trey's a guy who, one of the main reasons that I am still very, bullish on this team going forward for the next few weeks is he's a guy that you can go get the ball at the end of the shot clock and say, we need a bucket. And he'll deliver. I mean, he's got a mid range. He's obviously shown an ability to shoot the three ball at a high clip. He can get to the rim. He's long. He's just got the body type to go get a bucket for you. And so another guy that's actually really come around the last few weeks that I've been very impressed with is Ryan Nembhard. Ryan, if you want to compare him to, I always find myself doing this, and I probably shouldn't, but I always want to compare him to Marcus Zegarowski, and they have a little bit of a different game, but his shooting ability obviously isn't what Marcus's is, right? Or was, right? And so teams play us in ball screens a little bit differently than they used to with Marcus. And so it's harder. I feel like it's been harder for us to get lobs to Kalkbrenner this year because a lot of guards are going under screens on Ryan Nembhard, and so it's just clogging things a little bit more and making things a little bit more difficult. But I think that my point is I think that over the past few weeks Ryan shown an ability to shoot the ball at a much higher clip, and that's going to be really key going forward.
Yeah, a couple of times in that DePaul game, he definitely accepted the fact that they were going under, just calmly stepped back and knocked down some crucial threes, especially in the first half when they were pulling away there. They had a stretch there where, they were up 8. DePaul calls a timeout. Before you know it, you look up, the Jays are up 18. And then back to Trey Alexander's point about, playing well when, things get tough a little bit. A couple of times DePaul was, threatening to get back into like a single digit game, and who did Matt give the ball to in those situations? Trey, let's go high ball screen. Let's see what happens, and go get yourself one. And to your point, Taylor, about him being able to get into that mid-range area and just knocking him down consistently. A lot of those shots that he takes, I'm telling you, I take some of those shots in games now. Those are not easy shots, fading to your left, fading to your right, with the defense draped all over you. He kind of makes it look easy sometimes. And that just goes to like his ability, number one, but also like what the work that he's had to put in this offseason. That's something that Coach Mack always is high on him about, is the work that he saw him put in this past summer to get to this point. So I'm definitely right there with you guys too. Again, Trey Alexander was someone that I was really impressed by. Taylor, you kind of mentioned Arthur Kaluma's sophomore slump. I know that he's the type of guy that, again, when the lights are bright, he just likes to show out. Let's not forget what he did in the Big East tournament last year and what he did in the NCAA tournament last year too. Like, you ask a freshman to be thrown in that kind of situation, and then that's how he performs. Let's not sleep on Kaluma and the things that he could potentially do for the Jays these next couple of weeks as well. The Jays were projected to be first to start the year. They ended up being third in the Big East, and I know we're kind of, we're splitting hairs here a little bit, and I don't mean to be this guy, but do we have any right to say that this has been a little bit of a disappointing season for the Jays? Ross, I'll have you answer that question first.
No, I don't think so, because there's still I think we still have a few 3-4 weeks here to potentially look back and say, like, if we end up making like an Elite Eight Final Four type run, I think most fans would take the fact that we kind of had some ups and downs, right? Like, if you could trade one of the two, like at the beginning of the year, if you said we're going to end up making the Elite Eight or the Final Four, but there's going to be some head scratching moments during the regular season, like losing to Nebraska at home, losing to BYU, going on a 6-game losing streak,
Arizona State.
Yeah, all those things. Like, would you take that? I think unequivocally, every single Jays fans would say, yeah, I'll take that. Right. So it's, you kind of got to take it, with a little bit of a grain of salt. They worked through a lot of things. I think the bench, the bench production was a big topic of conversation for a long time there. There were a couple of injuries and some things you have to work through. Every program deals with that though, but I don't think it was never going to be as smooth as the preseason rankings wanted it to be for everybody. Like we were never going to go 30-5. I mean, that's just in my opinion, that's just unrealistic. Especially when you place those types of expectations on the team before they had played one game together with a guy like Baylor Shireman coming into the fold. I just thought that was always unrealistic to begin with. So we'll see how the next few weeks plays out, but I think we still have a chance to look back and say this was an all-time Creighton team.
I would say expectations for sure are tough, and they're tough to live up to for sure. And as much as kids try not to see all that stuff, I mean, it's this day and age, bro. They're on social media, they see everything that's written and said about them.
It's impossible not to. Yeah. Yep.
So to your point about like if Jays fans would trade away like the head scratching moments to start the year for like if you told them like there's going to be like a Elite Eight, maybe even Final Four team. But I think like if you were to say that to the average Jays fan, they would assume that would also come with a Big East regular season championship and perhaps right. So like that's why I'm saying those two things kind of don't go hand in hand. But again, this would be the year with such parity around the NCAA's that something like that could happen. Taylor, I want to ask you the same question. Like, do we have any right to say that this has been a disappointing season thus far?
I mean, the one thing I keep coming back to is the fact that, I mean, since Mac has been in the Big East, he's never fallen below what his preseason prediction was going to be. And so, right, being first in the preseason poll, there's really only one place to go is to go down, right? And you can make that assimilation across to Arthur as well, right? I mean, we talked to Jay about his great end to last season in the Big East tournament and NCAA tournament, and that's a huge reason why he was on some draft boards to start the season. And when you have that expectation, you only have a target. The only thing you're doing is putting a target on your back. And so I think you got every team's best shot, and now it's anybody's ball game, right? With the 3 seed coming in, they're going to have to beat great teams no matter what. And the one thing that does get frustrating, I think, is when you lose a close game, it's like, yeah, because that other team is also really good, right? So when you lose a close one to Xavier, Providence, or the one at home against Marquette, right? It's like, oh, well, why can't we just pull that out? It's like, well, because Marquette is a really freaking good basketball team, right? They also know how to win. And so I think what you're going to find this week is just who's going to is Creighton going to take that to the next level, right? Are they going to say, hey, the season is over, right? And now we've got an opportunity to show people who we are and what we've been building on, because they have gone through adversity. They have lost 6 games in a row. Then they went on a 9-game winning streak. So it's like they have all of the pieces, and now it's time to put it all together and showcase that on the biggest stage.
The one thing that I need to say too is that like the Big East preseason rankings also had Marquette at 9, I think, and we saw what they were able to do, right? So with all due respect, like we do kind of lean on things like that a little bit too much, but it's also at the beginning of every season. We're just so excited that basketball is back. Anything that catches our interest, we just kind of cling on to that. And I think obviously with the fan base that we have in Omaha, and honestly, like around Nebraska too, we saw that the Jays had all these like prospects who some were on draft boards. We saw their success near the end of last year and everything. You come in with this like high sense of like, okay, this is what they should be able to do. When you go through like a period like that 6-game losing streak, I think it just kind of brings all those expectations down a little bit, and people kind of have to adjust accordingly. But yeah, I think I kind of fall in love or in line with you guys there too, that this hasn't necessarily been a disappointing season. I think obviously there's still a ton to play for, right? One of those things for Coach Mack personally is the one trophy that has escaped him since his arrival in the Big East, which is this upcoming Big East tournament championship. His best shot, in my opinion, was against Georgetown a couple of years ago. We talked about how that was the Jays' bad night and Georgetown's incredibly hot night. My team, the first team in the Big East, was unable to capture it because of friggin' Bryce Cotton. Jesus, he absolutely lit us up that day. And then last year, how close were the Jays to beating Villanova? You had Gillespie, who was the Big East Player of the Year, hit a big 3 down the stretch to really separate Villanova from the Jays. Ross, I'll have you answer this question first again. How important do you think this is for Coach Mac personally this week coming up as far as being able to win this Big East tournament championship?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a hard one I don't think it's necessarily like needed for, for Mac's kind of resume. I mean, it would be nice to have. They've got I'm personally of the opinion, and again, this is an opinion thing, but I think most hoops people would tell you the same, that I think the regular season's more important. He's already got a Big East regular season title under his belt. I think that's more impressive personally. These conference tournaments can be very, very fickle. It's almost like it's weird. I kind of go back and forth with, if they're going to lose, if they're not going to win the whole thing, which obviously you don't know going into it, I'd almost rather lose the first game and just get out of there with one game and not be tired and not, have your hopes up that you're going to win the thing and you have to play 3 games in 3 days and all that. But I don't. Yeah, so I don't know what to think. I don't think it's something that he absolutely needs by any stretch. But I think obviously he would like to have it. So hopefully this is the team to do it.
Rational Ross, thinking about the longevity of the Jays. If we're not going to win the whole thing, let's go one and done.
Just get
Let's
him
go home and
out. Get
prepare
him
for the
home.
tournament. Taylor, what about you? Do you think like Mac, like this places a lot of importance into, man, I need to get at least one of these tournament championships?
I don't think he is going to come out and publicly say that, but I think we all
Mhm.
know how competitive he is, and internally he's sitting there saying to himself, right? He's like, I need to do this. Like we have to get there. We've been so close so many times, especially recently. It's like, what
Mhm.
else do we have to do? And sometimes that's all it takes, right? I mean, you've seen a lot of teams, and I think of UConn, old UConn team with Kemba, right? They come through storming through the Big East, win the Big East title, and then they take that right into the NCAA tournament. So kind of the polar opposite of what Ross is saying is like, if you can capture that momentum over the next few days and into the weekend, and then ride that storm all the way into not only the first and second round, but into Sweet 16, Elite 8, potential Final Four run, like this could really catapult Creighton through the NCAA tournament if they can prove to themselves, if Mac can figure out how to win some of those close games in these situations. It's like that gives you a lot of confidence going into the biggest time of the year. And now we all know that we've got great guard play. We know we can turn it up defensively, and it's really just about, can we hit some outside shots, right? Can we hit a couple outside shots that either keep us in a game or put the stiff arm out there to finish something off that we all know they're capable of doing?
You just mentioned one of my favorite like NCAA moments, cardiac Kemba, the
Oh
beginning of
my
that with a
gosh,
freshman
man.
Shabazz Napier. Like you
Shabazz,
said,
I
like
know.
came in. They were like that was at the time where the Big East tournament started like on a Tuesday night,
Yes.
but they basically had to win 5
There's
games in 5
18
days,
teams in
right?
the league. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. You had like South Florida in the Big East and stuff. It's like, what are we doing, man?
Yeah. I still remember that though. It was wild because after that, after they made that run, I think it was either Kemba or Shabazz was like, man, we did all this and like we don't even have a training table, we don't even have food, like we don't
Oh,
have
It was
anything.
Shabazz.
And then the
right.
next
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
next
that's right.
season was like
Yeah.
boom, NCAA was like, oh crap, we can't have this happen. And so
Right.
then everybody was starting, that was, that rolled right into now what is
Now
NLI.
look
And
at
it's like,
now look at these kids with
yeah,
Yeah.
NIL.
it's like
Now the
you can
boys are
stem
getting
that
that
like
cheddar.
one
Yeah.
statement from Shabazz Napier after the NCAA tournament run that they had. It's like, yeah, man, we didn't have any food. Like I just wanted to eat and I didn't have anything. And then, all of a sudden guys are making $500,000 10 years later.
I agree with
Well,
Taylor though. I want to clarify. I do think it's important. It would be really important for the team and Mac and the program to hold the trophy come Saturday night. No, there's no doubt
mhm.
about it. I just don't think it like defines, Mac's tenure by any stretch. But it is,
And
it's a great tournament, and I've said this to every single Creighton fan. If you have not gone, you need to at least go once. It is so much fun. Like the energy in Madison Square Garden is unbelievable. All the different fan bases are there. You're in Midtown Manhattan. It's a complete blast. I think if you could bury me on the Friday night semifinal games at MSG, I would be a happy man. Like, it is so much fun. So you have to go at least once if you're a Jays fan.
Yeah. And I hope I didn't frame it as such, Ross. That's not. I don't think that's what I meant by my
No, you
question. As
didn't.
far as
No, you
yeah.
didn't. Yeah.
I just like Taylor said it best too. Like Mac is so competitive. Like we know that this is one of the things that he definitely wants to scratch off of his list for sure. So he's obviously not going to come out and say like this is absolutely important for my legacy as a big
Right.
Like,
right.
He's not going to come out and say that. But like and I also forgot like the Marcus Foster led team that went to the finals ended up losing too, right? So it's just been so many opportunities, and just haven't been able to cash one in, and that is why like tournament time is just so crazy because like Patrick Ewing comes in and they've basically won 2 games in the Biggies since that has happened.
It's crazy.
But it's like they were able to capture lightning in a bottle, and that makes everything look so much better. I'm sure Patrick Ewing caught it. Like I don't want to speculate on what's going to happen with Georgetown. That's not my business, right? But let's just say they go different ways. At the very least, you could say like, hey, I brought my alma mater to an NCAA tournament in a season where we had nobody's doing so, and we won the Biggies tournament championship. So I just always think that that's a feather in the cap that coaches don't necessarily talk about or whatever, but it's very important to each of them individually.
No, I'm with you. I'll speculate for you, Jay. There's no chance he's the head coach at Georgetown next year.
you guys heard it from Ross and not from me.
I will second that. There is no chance that he can
we got the double down from Taylor Stormberg, you guys.
No chance.
So hey,
I've got a take for you.
All you guys would like to cut my clips and come after me later. This wasn't my saying, okay? Ross, what were you gonna say?
I've got a take for you, Biggie's coaching related. I think Rick Pitino is going to be the head coach at either Georgetown or St. John's next year.
Wow.
That's my take. That's my hot take.
Wow.
Here we go. Do we still have the sports? What was the sponsor that we used to have? Let's see if we can get a little sports book on that. Put a couple of dollars on that, and if Pitino becomes the coach, I'll be able to win a little bit of money there due to Ross's insight over here. Definitely want to talk about. We all agree that Villanova should be the team that the Jays play in Thursday in their first game in the Big East tournament. So let's just do a little bit of a preview of that game. We saw how Villanova chose to attack the Jays, which is a lot of pick and pop action with Dixon, who had a career night that night. We've seen teams that when they go pick and pop with the 5, Kalkbrenner has had some struggle with that. We saw Nunji from Xavier do it last year in Omaha. Obviously, Dixon was the latest example. So if you're the Jays, how do you combat that strategically in order to, get the upper end on Nova? Obviously, they'd be coming off of a win against Georgetown. We're all speculating here, but if that is the case, what would the Jays need to do strategically? Taylor, I'm gonna have you answer that question first.
Yeah, I was talking with a couple guys. I was talking with Rob Anderson and John Bishop about this at lunch today. It was just, do they come out with the same game plan that they had in Omaha and the same game plan that they had in Philadelphia in the first 2 matchups? And, it's just really difficult because Dixon, historically has not been a great 3-point shooter, right? He's been sub 30%. And now over the last 5 or 6 games, it seems like he's Ray Allen out there, and you're just wondering to yourself, like, is this sustainable, right? And so, you have to keep Kalk on the floor, right? First team All Big East Defensive Player of the Year back-to-back. You have to have him on the floor, but you've got to do a better job of breaking Dixon's rhythm. So whether you're stunting or helping from the weak side as he rolls over, or you're waiting for Kalk to get back and Kalk just knows I'm running at him with the idea that I'm bouncing back, whatever that is, you've got to take that away because Dixon is just, he's kind of owned Kalkbrenner, to be honest with you, in these first 2 matchups. And it's really because he's been able to step outside and then pick up a couple fouls on Kalkbrenner inside. And so I think it's just a tough matchup regardless. And there's so many other weapons that Villanova has that if you have a stretch 5 on the floor, it's like, that's the last thing that you would have to expect to guard. But now you've seen it he's kind of torched Creighton, especially in that matchup in Philadelphia.
Ross, what's your take on it?
No, it's sort of, I don't have much else to add from Taylor. I mean, I think, he mentioned maybe kind of trying to stunt at Dixon a little bit on some of those pick and pops, and I think he started to a little bit in the second half of that game at Wells Fargo, and he kind of got caught in between a couple of times. But I mean, gosh, I'll be stunned if Eric Dixon makes 6 threes again. I think you do, Mac's a big play the percentages guy, as you guys know, and I think you just at this stage you still got to do that. I don't foresee a guy like him burying 6 threes again.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mac has always been known to play the percentages for sure. And, when you do that, it's a little bit of a gamble where, we used to kind of say, hey, we'll live with this shot, right? We'll live with this shot. Well, sometimes that shot kills you. And that definitely happened against Dixon at Nova. The Jays were able to, beat him at home in a pretty close game, where down the stretch, just were able to make a play or two more than Nova. I anticipate it being another close game. Again, another one of those rigid, tough battles. I expect Kaluma to play a little bit better. Like I said earlier, it's definitely not. He's definitely not the kind of guy that's going to take this flying down like his performances these past couple of games. So I'm looking forward to see how he's going to be able to bounce back. And again, like you just never know. What if instead of him guarding, I'm blanking on the player, the lefty there for Villanova who doesn't shoot the ball
Slater.
that great. Slater. What if we put Kalkbrenner on Slater, allow Kalkbrenner's length to kind of roam because Slater has not shot the ball as well as Dixon has, and kind of have Kaluma in that situation. Obviously Villanova would then adjust and try and post up Kaluma a lot more, and then that's when the chess match begins. But I'm just kind of interested in seeing how two really good coaches are going to play this out. It's just going to be a really interesting matchup. What other Biggies first round games? I'm not counting like the playing games that we have coming up, but the first round potential games that you guys are looking forward to. That Providence UConn game is definitely going to be one that we're all going to be paying attention to. Ross, what are some of the games that you're looking forward to watching this week?
Yeah, that one's obviously kind of the big one. I think I wish that game were at night. I think the energy in the Garden would be crazy if that were a Thursday night game instead of what is it, 2:30. But that's probably the one that I'm looking forward to the most. It's what's really interesting actually is we talked about UConn earlier being 4th in KenPom but 5th in our league. They're also how many times have you seen a 5 seed? They're the betting favorite to win the Big East right now. It's almost like people have kind of forgotten about Marquette, despite the fact that they've had this banner year and their record, is what it is, and they win the Big East by a couple of games. It seems like, again, just to me, being on social media and talking to people around Omaha and listening to podcasts and whatnot, it seems like everyone's kind of on the UConn or Creighton train. So does Marquette kind of take that with a chip on their shoulder and continue their dominance and hold up the trophy come Saturday? That would not surprise me, to be honest.
Taylor?
Yeah, but that UConn Providence game I think is marquee, just because I also feel just the location as well. I think both those fan bases, while they're so close to New York City, right? There's just a Big East kind of like feel to that game, and it's so fun. I mean, we've all been in the Garden when those teams have played and not necessarily played each other, but the crowd just shows up, right? Whether they're UConn or Providence fans or just New York City basketball fans, like they just love to show up. Like, I could see Jordan Hawkins going off for like 7 or 8 threes in the Garden in that game, and the place just going crazy, right? Like that just like gives me goosebumps thinking about, because it's like that's the type of thing that New York City loves to bring out in guys. And it's like you'd have an East Coast guy in Jordan Hawkins come into New York City who just tearing it up. Like I could easily see that happen. Or I could see Bryce Hopkins going for 30 and 15, right? And the crowd just kind of carrying him through that performance. It's unlike anything that you can find in college basketball or really any arena across the country.
Taylor, you're going to be doing radio this year. Ross, you've done radio in the past. Guys, talk to me about just, you guys have a chance to basically be courtside and watch, the best basketball at the best time of the year. Taylor, you go first. Talk to me about like what your experience has been like. Obviously, not only just, doing it at MSG, which is its own thing, but just being able to like being alumni who has followed the Jays basically your whole life. You've played for Coach Mac, and now you have a chance to kind of call games and be right there courtside, following the team that you grew up, loving it and being a part of. How cool is that experience? And just talking about like, what you get to see and what you've experienced and your chance to be a play-by-play guy on the radio.
Yeah, I mean, I think first I'll tackle that with just like the MSG or Garden experience. Like, it's I mean, everyone's always called it the Mecca of basketball, right? And it is like the lights are just a little bit brighter, right? The crowd is a little bit louder. Like, it just seems like there's just this aura, and Ross can talk to this as well, but it's like, it's so cool to be a part of. Because you just have the opportunity to like know all the memories and moments that have happened in that building, and now you get to sit courtside and hopefully have the chance to call one of those. But as far as radio in general and just following Creighton basketball, I mean, this is I think the sixth or seventh season that I've been doing it, and so just to like watch the progress of the program. Obviously we've been so close with Mac, just because we were kind of that first class that came in under his tutelage, and try to figure out how to manage that. But to watch this program grow, from being in the old gym, going up the spiral staircase, right? Like
my knees just started
eating,
hurting.
Oh man, like eating at Lansky's, like, like it just
McDonald's breakfast down the street.
Yeah, and to see where it has been and what it's done to help the university as a whole, it's just so I'm proud to be a part of it, and I just hope for all the success for these guys. I know how much work that they put in, and they've just got such a great group of young kids. It's like I just want to see them be successful.
Ross, what about you? What's your experience been like?
That's awesome. I mean, I don't do as near as many games as Taylor does, but I did Big East last year. I did probably 5 or 6 road games the year that we won the Big East regular season title, or shared, and then COVID kind of canceled everything, and that was so much fun. That team had a knack for winning on the road and winning big games. And last year at the Garden I've been a Big East, I think 5 times total now. And that was far and away the most fun time I've had at it. It was unbelievable. It was the first one back, kind of post COVID. And it was just an unbelievable experience. Taylor's going to have an absolute blast, and you're literally courtside. And it's pretty tight quarters, I will say that, but it's so much fun. And I love watching the guys, and it's a really, really, really good group of kids, which I think makes you even more proud to be like an alum of the program. And they work really hard, and they're really good players. So it's fun, and I'm jealous. Taylor's going to be courtside, and hopefully he gets to do a few games.
I love, like you guys mentioning, obviously being so close to the program. Obviously, like we had Lou that was there with us, Mac was there with us, Murfeld was there with us, and those guys are still on the coaching staff. Since then, Mac has had, like we mentioned, D-Rock earlier, who's having great success at Drake, him and Tucker. We had Coach Lutz, who's out in Corpus Christi, or Texas A&M Corpus Christi, I should say, who won the Southland regular season. I think they're actually battling right now, if I'm not mistaken, in that tournament to see if they can get their automatic bid. So it's been really fun, obviously, not to only watch the Jays, but kind of watch like the coaching tree that we've kind of grown up under, and see how well that they're doing across the nation too. So yeah, I'm right there with you guys. I'm jealous though, like having to play overseas. I've never had a chance to experience Big East tournament. I never had a chance to experience a game in Omaha. Like, God, that's the thing that I need to write off the bucket list, both those things. But, one day I'll be able to do that, but it's not today just yet. But I'm jealous that you guys have had that experience, and I can't wait until it's my turn to knock back a couple of brews in the Garden, yell at some Providence fans as I hopefully watch the Jays win a tournament championship. Man, that must be so much fun.
Yeah, dude, it's amazing, Jay. You'll have plenty of opportunities, man. So take your time. Stay healthy. Health is wealth, and then you'll be able to crush a couple brewskis with Ross and I.
To Taylor's point about the East Coast fan base. So last year, we played the first semifinal game, and we completely boat raced Providence, which was wild in and of itself. And then the game after ours was. So this is Friday night is when the semis are. So Eastern time, the game probably starts. The second semifinal game probably starts at like 8:39, and it's a Friday night.
Right.
And it was Villanova UConn. And so the
Oh,
place is just filled to the rafters. I mean, it was like the most fun basketball game I've probably been to since I was a kid. I mean, it was so loud. There's a million people there. Everyone's drinking, having a good time. It was a great game. So that's why I've always told people, even if you go to Big East and Creighton loses on a Thursday, you should still try and go to
just stay. Yeah.
the semifinal games on Friday night, because just to experience the energy in there, because it's pretty unmatched. And Jay Wright has actually even talked about that too. He's talked about the weekend games of Big East tournament and how the energy in there is as good as any he's ever been a part of in college basketball, and it's very, very true.
Yeah, for like a neutral site like MSG is bonkers. Like there's some neutral sites where it could kind of be dead, even though they try to make it 50-50. Maui not
Right.
included, obviously. Maui is its own thing. But I think just as a neutral site where there's like legit like 10 fan bases who are all diehards of their team who are in there all packed. And like you said, like the year that we made it to the finals as us in Providence, those Nova fans stayed behind to watch that finals. You know what I mean? St. John's
Yep.
fans stayed behind to watch that fight, even though their team was eliminated. Nova lost in that first round that year to a buzzer beater by
Seton
wow, I'm
Hall.
blanking on my
Seton
guy's
Hall.
name. Ashton Gibbs. No, yeah, Ashton Gibbs.
That sounds
Powell.
right.
Was it
Yeah.
Powell?
No,
No,
it was
Powell would
it
have
was
been.
Gibbs. No, Powell was we never played against Powell, or
Yeah, he
my
was a few
team
years
didn't play
after.
against Powell.
Oh,
Yeah.
gotcha.
But yeah, it was Gibbs because I remember his brother played at Pitt earlier
Yeah,
that's right.
back in the day.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I
like
remember that.
those fans, like they stay back and they pay attention and they really want to see. So it kind of goes to show that basketball means a lot in the Big East. It always has, it always will. You kind of mentioned South Florida being like a random team in the Big East back in the day. Ross, what's more random, South Florida or Creighton from Omaha,
I
Nebraska
know.
being in the Big
Hey
East?
man, we bring a lot. We bring a lot more juice, a lot more fans, a lot more everything to the Big East than
That's
South
true.
Florida ever did. I can tell you that.
Jay's gonna have hate mail from South Florida fans. Like, how could you throw
Hey,
us under the bus, man? You're gonna
There's
get
like
pictures of
there's
them
like
that.
8 South Florida fans anyway, so it's
No.
not like a big thing.
This guy is.
I'm gonna get
Oh
fired. I'm gonna
man.
get fired for starting a riot on the Philly Social Media Network. Oh, South Florida, Rutgers. Who else? Give me another team that was the Big East that you were like, whoa, you guys don't bring nobody.
I'm trying to think of some others in that old Big
Honest,
East.
Mhm.
South Florida is really the only one that was like kind of bizarre. I like Rutgers fits.
Yeah.
Rutgers
Yeah,
in the Big Ten is actually
geographically,
weird.
Rutgers fits. I mean, yeah, it
Yeah,
fits more in the Big East than the Big Ten. I agree with you there.
right, right. I think although for the most part, most of the other teams are pretty normal-ish. I mean, Marquette's been in the league for a long time now. Marquette went straight from Conference USA. They kind of parlayed that D Wade
Yeah, that D Wade
Novak,
run. Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, to Big East, and they Marquette did really well in the old Big East too. Those are those Buzz Williams teams where he was going to Sweet 16 to Elite Eights. I mean, that was in the old Big East.
Yeah. Though that Tom Crean face won when Indiana beat Kentucky at the buzzer at home,
At
and then
home.
Yeah,
when Dwayne Wade led him to that Final Four. I don't know why when I think Tom Crean, I just see those two faces like simultaneously back to back. But yeah, those Marquette teams like were really good. Were really good in their time too. They had Jay Crowder, like they had Jimmy Butler, like those are really good
Mhm.
teams.
oh my God, yeah.
So but yeah, man, it's so fun to talk basketball with you guys, especially at this time of year, man. It's up. Like this is
So
the time that
excited.
you really want to like log down and pay attention. After I get off the horn with you guys, I'm gonna try and see who's up right now, since I still got a couple of hours left before I go to sleep here in Vienna, Austria. I don't know what you guys will be doing for the rest of the day, but I would suggest you kind of do the same thing. Just kind of tap in and see what kind of fun basketball we have playing right now. Obviously, we wish the Jays the best of luck in the Big East tournament and obviously in the NCAA tournament too. You guys who are listening right now, be ready for a preview of the NCAA tournament once this whole Big East week wraps up, and we'll be able to talk about the Jays' performance. You know what our hopes are going into the NCAA tournament, and all that good jazz and all that good stuff. Guys, I really appreciate you guys taking a little bit of time out. Taylor, I'll let you have the first word. What is something that you'd like Jays fans to know heading into the Big East tournament?
All right. I just think that they've gotta remain calm. Just don't overreact, right? If Villanova comes out and punches us in the face, and if we end up losing that game, like it doesn't mean the season's over, right? I mean, you get a fresh slate starting Monday next week. Like it does not matter, right? It's like, yes, would it be nice to win? Yes, would it be nice to make a little run in the Big East tournament, right? Like, yes, do we need to beat Villanova, right? Obviously, like we'd love all those things, but the idea is that this team is playing their best basketball next week, where they head to whatever site they're going to go to, and they're going to have to beat amazing teams no matter what seed they get. So I think that's just a little word of advice to the Jays fans. It's like, don't overreact if, Creighton's one and done this week.
Ross, any last words?
Yeah, I'm just, I'm thinking, I agree with Taylor. We're in a nice position of, sort of a stress-free position of going to your conference tournament, not having to worry about if you're going to get into the tournament or not. Or, for some of these low majors and mid majors, having to win 3 games in 3 days to get in. So it's a little bit more of a stress-free environment for us, which is nice. And I think the thing that Creighton fans, a positive, even if we do lose in the first round, a positive that you can take away going into the NCAA tournament next week is we have a top 10 defense on KenPom and by most metrics. And, for a long, long time, we weren't really known. Our program was not known for defense, and that's kind of flipped over the past few years. And I think that's the thing that can really take us deep into the tournament over these next few weeks is our defense and that end of the floor. And if we can make some shots on top of that, we're going to be really hard to beat here for most teams in the tournament.
Hell yeah, I love it. I like the positive vibes from Ross to close it out here. Yeah, it's definitely going to be a good week of basketball. It's going to be worth watching for sure. I wanted to say something, but it kind of slipped my mind. It must not have been that important. It's probably going to be a joke about something, but I've already forgot about it, so it's all good.
Jay, Coach Let's plays in a half hour, by the way.
Woo! I'm watching that for sure. Let's go. Let's go. Throw your shakas up. The Islanders out of Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Boys, appreciate you guys. Love you guys. Obviously, stay safe. Taylor, have fun doing the play-by-play. Ross, I know you're going to be paying close attention. And yeah, I can't wait to talk to you guys a little bit more about some Blue Jay basketball throughout the week with everything that I'm seeing. So appreciate you guys. Love you guys. Stay safe. And as always, go Jays.